teach and offer transmissions to directly connect to the soul self. Elisa is a licensed marriage and family therapist and Hay House author of the popular book, Meet Your Soul, a powerful guide to connect with your most sacred self. Adam is a yogi, mindfulness meditation teacher, and sacred sound channel. They offer soul sessions to spiritual seekers worldwide, both individually and together. You can learn more at elisaromeo.com and adamfoley.org. And so I will, near the end, I'll post those websites in the chat here. And for anyone that's listening to this as a recording, I will also post those websites below, right below the video that you're watching. So they'll be easy to access if you want to connect with Elisa and Adam. And so I'm really excited about your topic today, transmissions of the beloved, live Q&A and soul transmissions to embody divine love. And I think it is just so beautiful that you both wanted to participate together as a couple in this amazing conversation about masculine and feminine and balancing and bringing them together. Just absolutely love that. So thank you both for being
happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Together. We've been doing a lot of individual work, so it's nice to get a chance to work together. And yeah, be more working together coming up soon too.
This is one of our first public forums together doing this because we've had so many of these energy dynamics going on in our relationship really since we met 5 years ago that we've needed to ground and embody and understand, and we wanted to be really clear on what that was before we started talking about it or working with those energies publicly. And they're big energies, so it really took us 5 years to come out with it. So this is kind of a cool day for us because we're coming out with this work we've been doing together and privately with people. But so
it was very synchronistic. You invited us to do this because we had just finished doing a whole course for summer retreat, and we're like, okay, it's time for us to do this. We're ready to do it, and then we got you that same day.
Yeah,
that is
really
fantastic.
Cool. We just finished the syllabus and got your email. So it was like,
wow. Yeah, there are bigger powers at work. Well, I am just honored to be here and be able to share you both together in this kind of a debut of you, working together in this way. That is just fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks so much for hosting.
Yeah, definitely. So I would love to know, to start out our conversation, if you could talk a little bit about why is this work so important, this work toward conscious embodiment of the feminine and the masculine?
Yeah, I think we didn't know why it was important for a really long time. Before I met Elisa, it wasn't something I ever thought about, really, and so we've discovered why it's important through our relationship and through our spiritual practice. And it was more something that started happening to us. And then we had to understand it. And then we just saw the benefits. We just saw all the reasons why these energies are important in our lives and our spiritual practice.
Yeah, my background's in Jungian psychology. So I had read for years about the anima and the animus, the inner masculine and feminine. And I was, 19 years old reading Marion Woodman. So I was learning about the conscious feminine and leaving the patriarchy and how to balance my inner masculine and feminine. And so I had done a lot of that work. I would say more psychological inner work. And it wasn't until I met Adam that I felt like I was introduced directly to the energies of the divine masculine feminine. I think I knew them in my head for years. I could identify them. I could have written down for you on a piece of paper what it means to be in the masculine, the feminine, written papers about it, right? But I didn't get it in my body. And I didn't have that process of like starting to dance with the energies personally until Adam showed up. And I will say that my kind of view into the divine masculine feminine is really through the soul. So more so than maybe just a strict Jungian way of understanding them. So I think it's really useful to know about the principles because the soul energy usually does have more of a masculine or divine feminine energy to the soul. I see the soul, it's like a universe. And it's hard sometimes to categorize. And it's not like we're just trying to categorize or, put things in containers. But there's a reality that when you start to basically feel into how the soul is charged, there's a freedom comes with that, because it allows you, first it can help you give languaging, but it also gives you a kind of permission to become your true self in a more full and authentic way.
Yeah. I think understanding this work is just about understanding the energetics that's already going on, and so it's just kind of a tool to start using as a window to see more of the dynamics of your soul. And for people who don't know Elisa and her work with soul, is she does soul sessions worldwide. She wrote this book, Meet Your Soul, and it's all stemmed from this out-of-body experience she had. She could probably say it in better words than I can, but and so when she came back from her out-of-body experience, she could see souls. And so when she does soul sessions with people, she's psychically looking at their soul. She's getting information from their higher selves, and then helping them apply that information to their lives and how to use that in practical ways to enliven your life. And she teaches people how to do that themselves. And one thing she was discovering after me and Elisa and I realized our dynamic was that when she was looking at souls, she saw there's different percentages of masculine and feminine
in
energy
that universe.
Wow, amazing.
And some souls were, 90% feminine, 10% masculine. Some souls were 50-50%. And so utilizing these divine masculine, feminine energies is just a way to witness your own soul and to start discovering your own soul and all the dynamics.
And I think it's important to know that masculine feminine is much more how you're speaking about it, like on the summit, not the classical gender roles of how we identify masculine, feminine,
man and woman. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can definitely have female genitalia and a masculine soul and vice versa. And in homosexual relationships, there's still that polarity of the dance of those two energies. I always think that's important to say, just so.
And it vacillates too. So I think we all incarnate with a strong percentages of either masculine or feminine, but you can utilize that 10% of your feminine in this one moment, or that, 10% of your masculine, even if you have a small percentage of that soul. So you can switch roles in your relationship if you're coming from the masculine or the feminine.
I think that's so interesting that you mentioned the percentages, that you can see kind of a divide there. Somebody, a man on the first day of this conference asked, he said, so as a man, what should I be striving for? Should I be striving to be 50% masculine and 50% feminine? How do we balance that? And we've kind of kept discussing that question throughout the next 2 days. So it was such a very interesting way.
Beforehand, I was like, oh, the goal is to balance.
Yeah.
And I do think sometimes that's an important stage of the journey. Sometimes we really have to work on that.
Yeah.
I see it like, if you're an artist and you're creating and you're in the feminine, whether you're male or female body, you might have to work on your masculine of putting the work into the world, taking your art down to the coffee shop and saying, will you hang this on your wall, and presenting it like. So sometimes it is about that inner meeting, but also what was surprising about our relationship, like what our relationship showed me, was that I didn't understand how, if you had asked me before I met Adam, did I think I was more feminine or masculine, I would have probably told you feminine based on how I thought I was. But actually the energies I was running from on a daily basis were incredibly masculine. So in my case, because my soul is 95% divine feminine energy, then there was a incongruency between how I knew myself to be and who she was. And she was giving me clues through the years, because I do the soul journaling in the morning where I show people how to talk to your higher self and start to get in touch with your multidimensional self. And so she was always saying things that were very divinely feminine, but I didn't really get my addiction. It was really an addiction to kind of ideas of what I thought I needed to be in the world to be safe, which were much more masculine energies. So it wasn't until really being in conscious relationship with the divine feminine, I understood that it was okay for me to really be that and surrender to that, and that being vulnerable didn't mean being weak. And because that, I think, is a big one that we feel. If you're a woman with a feminine soul, oftentimes there's this fear, if I really know my heart of hearts is vulnerability and that open love way, like, am I going to get pummeled? Am I going to be unsafe? How am I going to function in a challenging world sometimes that really values power over as its monetary system, basically. So
yeah, I think, go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
I'd say on the percentages, it's not one, nothing is better than the other. Like if you have a 50-50%, that's not better if you have a 90-10%. It's all about just how you understand your soul and what is your soul mission this lifetime of becoming conscious of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the very opposite experience of Elisa, and this was completely divinely orchestrated, where she had been, trained in the false masculine this lifetime.
And the reason why we say it's false, because it wasn't my most true nature as a soul.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm functioning as 90% masculine in my personality, then there's a falsity there.
And I've been trained in the feminine, in the false feminine way, and which I thought was being a conscious man, was learning compassionate listening, was being politically correct and all these things. I mean, not politically correct, I guess.
Well, now he's not necessarily. Yeah. But
I was in like
he was really good at the feminine, right? He could hold space for groups. He was totally comfortable with his group of friends talking about their feelings and being a yoga teacher and like
being receptive.
A natural counselor. So he was totally, which to me is also really sexy because he did his work in his feminine. So it wasn't like he was coming from this like over patriarchal energy.
But because I was trained in that way, now that I'm meeting my masculine soul, I have this absolute clarity about it because it's so different from what my ego was trained in. And same with Elisa. And so that was just designed for us. So we could have a really clear understanding of what masculine soul and feminine soul.
And when we were first together, he had nightmares about his soul coming to him because he really felt his soul was really aggressive compared to what he thought love would look like or kindness was. And yet his soul, whenever I felt his soul coming through him and that energy, like he'd be like, I don't want to say what my instinct is to say right now. And I could feel the energy of his soul. And I'd be like, please say it. Say I'm so in love with whatever's about to happen. And he would be like, you're going to hate me if I do that, or you're going to be hurt if I do that. And there's a part of me that's like, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Like, please do this. So he would have these dreams that this like dark figure was coming to kill him.
Wow.
Because I was traumatized by the masculine in society now, because we have such a false masculine in politics and everything, this power over dynamic from the masculine. So I was like, I'm going to make my life everything but that, I'm going to push all that energy away because our society is so unbalanced that way. And really, that's not what we should do. We should not shun the masculine. We should learn the true masculine. And where does the masculine has direction really come? When he's coming from love. And the biggest thing I'd like to say about the divine masculine, divine feminine, which I think is the most important part, is there is no divine masculine if he's not related to the divine feminine. There's no divine feminine if it's not related to divine masculine. They do work as that yin yang, completely in balance, and one without the other just is not divine. It does not exist.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And I really liked your distinction, Adam, that there's not a correct balance, that it's different for every single individual. So the balance for you is different than the balance for Elisa. The balance is different for me, but it could be, it's the right balance for each of us in our own lives and our own soul contracts and everything that we need. Yeah.
And trusting that we're always where we should be in terms of our soul lessons. I think that's such a relief too, to know, is that like, even if things are falling apart in the physical world regarding relationship or internally, whatever, we're always at that perfect place for what we're learning. Our soul's always orchestrating this understanding of these two energies. So that's really a good, because sometimes, we were back and forth on even talking about how we're twin flames, because sometimes it brings up this, there's, I think, a lot of misinformation about what twin flames are. And there's sometimes people are like, I want my twin flame and I don't want to be in a relationship unless it's with a twin flame. And it's a hierarchy thing. And we do not feel like that at all. It was something that like we didn't ask for. I really trust every moment before that. I was exactly where I needed to be in the process. And I was saying to Adam earlier when we were dropping our other son at school this morning, like, I don't know if I would wish this on my children, you know, like in some ways it's like really intense and it's like a full-time job because the nature of our dynamic is like spiritual boot camp where every moment is about really dying to the ego. So sometimes a really close soulmate relationship would be more optimal in terms of what's comfortable, you know, because so it's not like
what's hard about
a
it,
better or worse thing.
Yeah.
It's just the reality for us is that our relationship completely depends upon our understanding of the masculine and feminine energies because well, I could go on and on about that, but
I think what's hard about it is that Elisa loves me more than I love myself because she's
it's
really
like I love his soul more than I'm attached to his ego or more. So, and I can feel it so clearly in him. So I'm always fighting for that in him. So his ego is always up for death and same vice versa. Yeah. And in the beginning, it was so horrible because I was like, I want to feel special and like beautiful in this certain kind of really egoic way, but I didn't know anything else in relationships. So he was kind of like, I don't care how comfortable you feel. I want Sophia, your soul, basically. And if he felt Sophia, he's the perfect mirror for me on this planet, and to sense, it's like a biofeedback machine. He can sense when I'm not in Sophia, like to such crazy degrees that I have no choice. My love for him forces me to embody her, whether my ego wants to or not.
For those who don't know, Sophia is the name that Elisa calls her soul. And in Meet Your Soul, she does this meet and name her guide, which is sort of when you start dialogue with your soul, sometimes it's helpful to give your soul a name so you can help start personifying your soul.
Yeah, a lot of people think like, well, I am my soul. Why would I have a different name? And it's true, our soul makes us up, but we are multidimensional. So there's like a huge vibrational difference between our ego functions and our soul information. So it can be really helpful as a navigation tool, like your inner remote control, to be able to basically raise your brain state from beta to theta really quickly. So the soul journaling helps to build that fifth chakra psychic tool so that you're getting the voice of your soul really clear, and it's not necessarily what your ego wants to hear. It's often when you're really being authentic with the process, it's a death process of, instead of like Zen meditation for 14 hours against a rigid wall, it actually is kind of a more feminine practice in terms of how to die with your higher self.
It's just that holy love process. When you feel love, like the biggest love, you can feel it kind of burns all those places away where you feel really small, where you have that lie of your small moments, that I'm not connected to everything, that I'm not connected to big love, and all those ego programs start burning away. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about it being hard. And it is hard. Sometimes it's not hard. Sometimes it's beautiful. People should know that too, so they're not afraid.
Yeah, they're like, why are we This sounds horrible.
Terrible.
We're terrible salespeople.
Well,
I actually say that. We're like, come to our retreats and we'll cry the whole time. But it's actually it's such a relief crying. You're dying. It's a coming home feeling, but it is like emotional.
You're shedding everything that you've been holding on to.
Well, I wanted to ask you to just talk a little bit more about soul, about how you, your perception of soul and how you share, how you explain that to others, how you share that with others, just for those who are listening who may not know all that background about your work. And I think it was really helpful. I heard in an interview with Elisa before, it was helpful to hear your kind of the distinction between soul and spirit. That was something that I had never fully perceived in that way before, and that just was really eye-opening.
And that's really like Jungian concept as well, where so we all have a soul and a spirit, and often they're mixed together. People say soul and spirit's the same thing, but the soul part of us. So I see spirit like the ocean, and it's like that God energy, creator energy, all the sacred hum, where all is one, and we're all basically the pool of love. And then the soul to me is like the raindrop, where it's individuated, it's separate from the ocean, it's made up of the ocean, it's water, but it is separated for the beautiful process of incarnation. Then the raindrop has a unique, basically like personality, or whatever you want to call it, size, shape. It might be a little different than that raindrop. It's holding over here to the glass in this way, so that the ocean can know itself through these different forms of basically like form.
Yeah. Both me and Lisa had out-of-body experiences, and our feelings were when we got very close to this big pool of God love where we were connected to all things, but we were still individuated, and we still had this slight flavor of our souls. And the flavor of your soul, once you get to know it, might feel totally different than when you expected it to be. It will feel extremely familiar in some ways, but it also is yourself on the highest vibration. It's your sainted self. So in many ways, that's,
and it's yourself out of all programming. So it has no like trauma, pain body, what your parents wanted you to be, like what society tells us is right or wrong.
When you join the God pool, you're basically selfless. And so the soul is the first step of self. And that's soul journaling is the first step that you can hear a voice as the highest vibration. Whenever I hear biblical stories about the voice of God and all these things, I think it's the voice of soul, because God to me doesn't speak. You know, he's voiceless.
Or she.
Or it. Yeah, I'm using.
Well, it's weird because it's such an expansive word.
Yeah. Either or.
And that's the thing, right? As soon as we say he or she, we're starting into the raindrops in terms of it's going from that all is one enlightenment, which you can have experience of through your soul. Like there's a lot of people in meditation and different religions who've had that experience, right? Of we're all connected, all is one. And that's that enlightenment process. And then traditionally known as spiritually masculine. And then just like the feminine on the planet, which has been minimized and devalued, the spiritually feminine face of God looks like the enlivenment practices, those places where we're attached. And it's not about non-attachment, it's about attachment in a really authentic and true embodied alive way. And I always think of an example of this, how wrong sometimes we make those feminine ideals. I had a client who was a mother whose child was dying with cancer, and she was thought of herself as a spiritual person. And she was like, is it unevolved of me to be attached to my dying child? Like that I'm crying over my child dying. And that to me is the ravage that happens when we're over spiritualized in the masculine and we don't understand the divine feminine in the body. Because then it's like, what's authentic to her soul? Her soul is crying for that child. Her soul understands the soul contracts, that beautiful, what they were teaching each other, the embodiment piece. And that doesn't mean that she won't continue to dialogue with that being when that being crosses over and learn a beautiful spiritual lesson and be evolved through that process. But to deny the human mother piece or just human experience is incredibly missing a huge piece.
I think that's a great example or metaphor of how you can use the divine masculine and feminine in that situation if you have to grieve the loss of a family member or such, because the feminine is that part that is attached to life, that loves the people in your life, that wants to keep living. And that's the part that can truly grieve, that can cry about somebody dying, that can really let yourself feel that and feel how beautiful they were and really treasure that time. The masculine, that is that part that understands all is good, the part that is a little non-attached, which is important as well
to navigate,
because otherwise, you can spiral into a 5-year depression or something like that, where it gets too muddy and stuck. And having an exact perfect balance of both is that way where you can really let yourself feel it, really let yourself understand that person without becoming unconnected to yourself.
I think we see that a lot, right, in the New Age movement, where there's people who are really out of their bodies in the false masculine, spiritually bypassing, and they're like, there's not a compassion or a humanness there, and there's kind of like, it's all meant to be, and if that happened to you, that's your karma, and it can be really cold. And that's because there's not enough of that divine feminine present. So it's important that we have both.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious I'm sure this went both ways, right? So in your relationship, as your relationship grew and you were learning about these energies of masculine, sacred masculine and divine feminine, and I'm sure your relationship changed because of your understanding of them, but I'm sure your understanding of them also changed because of your relationship, right?
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that, like that process? How did that evolve for you, and what did you learn through that process together?
in the beginning. And I think this is common with twin flames, because the stuff that's activated is everything that's going to stop you from your true self, but it's like you're deeply attached to it. You want to fight for it, you know, as your identity.
If you can't see, Elisa's doing boxing hands.
Yeah, boxing. And I'm Italian, right? So like, and I'm psychic. So when I fight, it can be like not pretty. Because I mean, you know, there was stuff for sure. I'm just remembering some blowouts. Oh my God, the blowouts we used to have. I'm thinking of that one night over at the studio where I don't even remember what started it. Maybe it was a dresser I wanted to purchase, something really dumb. We got into this fight. And it wasn't about the dresser, obviously. It was about, was I trusting my masculine? And what's hard about the twin flame relationship is
as in me.
That's Adam, because a twin is a soul moved into two bodies, incarnated. And I hated that idea. Like, we started Googling twin flame stuff because we were having these crazy energies happen, and we were trying to make sense of what was going on with us, where at the exact same time, whether we were together or apart, we'd have these like kundalini like experiences that were like orgasming through the body, whether we were together or apart, and they were clearing out the chakra system. And we'd be like almost in seizures, like couldn't move for 15 minutes with like God love that was like insane. And I'd be just like laughing. And I remember we had a friend who's like, you guys are really ungrounded right now. And we're like, yeah, we are. Like, we were working so hard to like try to stay in our bodies because the energies were huge. I was once going to New York and in turbulence, and I had for like 30 minutes like this crazy energetic orgasm, and it was kind of like when Harry met Sally at the restaurant. It was like, what's happening to that chick over there? And it was scary too, because we're like, what is this, you know?
Yeah, I would say what's beautiful about the feminine is she can fall into her spiritual experience. She can have these ecstatic love explosions, and she can just open and open and open from the heart. And one metaphor I use is as in like spiritual practice. Like, the feminine is that piece that can sit in meditation and can just be in spiritual ecstasy, or the masculine is the part that brings us to the meditation, that has the regimented schedule, that's like, okay, we're gonna sit that has
down.
the direction. And the masculine is the part that directs us out of the spiritual experience. It's like, okay, like now it's time to come out of that experience, function in the world. You know, the masculine keeps us functioning on the basic human level we need to, so we can be in ecstatic experience. And so when Elisa talks about trusting me as her masculine, I don't need her to trust me about business decisions or daily life, you know, choices. But I have that gift to give her, where her happiest state is when she's allowed to surrender and allowed to be just herself and feel relaxed. And so my mission for when I'm guiding her in the masculine is to allow her to feel that way. And so that's what our fights were about, was I was asking that of her. I'm like, it's
and
okay
I was like,
to surrender me
that
this way.
sounds terrifying. Like, I don't want to lose control. Like, I was raised to be like a empowered woman, you know, like high self-esteem. And so every time I felt the divine feminine come in, I was like, nope, like I'm not losing my power, which at that time I didn't understand the difference between power and control. And I didn't understand what power in the feminine looked or felt like. And I think that's like a huge thing, because right now there's so many people speaking about the divine masculine feminine. It's cool. It's like coming out, right? There's all these people speaking about it, but there's also a danger, because now everyone has a whole bunch of information, and it doesn't help, like I did before, necessarily to understand it on paper. It's really about, can you sense that the person speaking about it gets the energies in their body, or directly, or is on that humbling path of surrendering to that death process constantly. Because I think there's a lot of, in particular, heterosexual female-bodied women that are talking about the divine feminine from controlling false masculine energies. And so then it's like, what the world needs right now is obviously not more information. What we need is healing. We need the energies to come in. And so we need our bodies to be these beautiful portals for this energy to come in. And I think sometimes we're hesitant, again, to talk about what happened to us, because it's so like weird, you know. And I don't think it's like what everyone should strive for in any way, but I do think what happened to us helps us do what we do now, but what we're meant to do on the planet. But also,
it's a very specific lesson when you're supposed to really consciously understand all the ins and outs of
it.
something, because you really have to go through so much and go through all the steps and go through it in all directions. And in some ways you have to be like babies of whatever you're learning, and I think both me and Elisa were babies in what we were learning. She was like the baby feminine, I was the baby masculine,
Like,
and we had to learn everything step by step, really what that meant,
And that's why
to
I have
be-
like so much respect for homosexual people, transgender people, because it's like they're forced more than a heterosexual person to really understand who they are as a soul around that. And I think that's so brave as a soul lesson to come in knowing, coming into a hostile environment where your authenticity might not be mirrored. And then, but the beauty of that is that then you know it consciously in a way that like no one could take it from you, because you fought to know what that really is and struggled with it really consciously.
Yeah.
Well,
And divine masculine.
I think it's so important that you're sharing your experiences, and even, especially because they're, weird, as you're saying, or whatever, unusual, because we've had a couple people that have been on these webinars for the last few days, for example, have had strange experiences like Kundalini type experiences. And it catches you completely off guard when that kind of thing happens. You're like, what's happening to me? Am I going crazy? So it's really important to share with people and to let people know that this is something really beautiful and important that's happening. It may not feel beautiful all the time, but it's so important to open up to it and let it happen. And it is trying to get you to a higher place of awareness and consciousness. So, yeah.
And I think if the twin flame, for anyone listening, if you think this might be something you're in, know that there's usually a long runner chaser dynamic. So there's a lot of like getting everything on board, but also it is real. I think that's why we did ultimately say we want to say that we're that, because there's a lot of people also like Matt Kahn, who I really love his work in many other ways. He doesn't believe this is real, the twin flame piece, because if it doesn't happen to you, it seems insane.
I didn't believe it was
like,
real.
Yeah,
it happened to me.
I wouldn't have believed it was real for sure, because I thought it was like romantic projection. I mean, I was so about, I don't want to be in a projection. And I thought, like the Jerry Maguire statement, you complete me. Like, I thought that was like my worst nightmare. So for me, this was kind of like my worst nightmare, like a twin flame relationship. This is my worst nightmare. But then it's also, he's allowed me to become more of myself than I understood. For many people, your twin isn't incarnated at the same time as you. So they act as your dominant spirit guide, which again is really important. You get to do so much of that direct work in your sleep at night or in through your journaling, and they are there. It's a real love. And sometimes I have to reflect for people, because when people become more energetically sensitive or more psychic, sometimes they become aware of their twin in a different dimension. I've definitely had clients that are females in marriages, and then they're like, but I'm in love with this being that comes to me that's not my husband. Am I like cheating on them? This being is giving me incredibly wise spiritual information. And so also it's like to normalize for those people, like, that's okay too. And to me, I think that's what Jung initially was feeling with the anima animus thing. I think he thought it was more of an inner psychological complex, which was actually the voice of another entity coming from within. So there's so many ways, facets, how this can show up. Nothing's right or wrong. Trust you're always where you should be. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. I also feel like, though, the number one thing everyone can do is fall in love with your soul, because there's absolutely no way I could have received this love if I didn't already, for 20 years now, I've been writing with Sophia in my journal. So, and Adam loves Sophia often more than I do, because he can feel her so directly in a different kind of way in his body. So if I wasn't already really on board and committed and dedicated to her, like, we wouldn't have survived the beginning at all. So in terms of manifesting relationships, I think if you want it to come from that soul connection, start talking to your soul. I've got practices all on my website, how to do that. But so that you are ready to receive the big love that wants to come in around it. And also,
could you share a practice or two with us? I'm sure people would love to hear.
So much. I think,
so Elisa has a free meditation on her site. There's a couple. Is there a Meet Your Soul meditation?
Yeah, there's
and then
the
there's
meet and name her. So starting to get in, it first starts with the intention, right? Before so many times at the beginning, people are like, I don't know if I'm making this up. How do I know if I'm doing it right? And it's like, if you can imagine anything, then you can do it. We can all do it. It's just starting to set the intention. Like, I want to know who I am as presence, who I am outside of who I think I am. And I often think of soul as, that spark you come from, but it's also like, if somebody's in a coma, you can feel their soul around their body, right? They're not doing anything. They're not saying anything, but who is that soul? What is that energy that everyone has that's unique?
A lot of what Elisa does with clients is she'll say, imagine what your most loving, highest self would say about a situation. And don't ask a question at first that's your most anxious question, that's the most pressing thing in your life, but ask a simple question that's like, what should I do today? Or something like that. And most of our clients, their first reaction, they'll say something incredibly wise right then. They're like, okay, I'm just going to pretend I'm talking to my highest self. And they'll say like the most wise, perfect thing for that moment. And then they'll be like, well, I don't know if that was real or not, because they're still having that ego soul separation. But as they keep doing the work, it feels more and more familiar. And then they start getting more and more accurate information and validation, where they're like, wow, that was the perfect thing for me to do today. Or I really did, I asked who was I going to go meet out in public when I walked around. And I really did meet that person. They start getting psychic information, and then they start getting a visceral body feeling as well, where they start feeling what their soul feels like over time. So it's a relationship you build, like any relationship. And so it takes time. And
you can see the battling right away, and I'm sure everyone has experienced this with a friend, where you're asking them like, what would love do or tell you right now? And they're kind of like, I don't know if I'm worthy of that. And you can see them fighting, right? The gremlins that are like, you can't do that. Why try? Life's too hard, right? All that stuff versus like the little voice of hope, that little voice of like, well, maybe it's okay. Like,
I think the best way to show somebody you love them is through time. Continually showing up for them and showing that you are, dedicated and love them, which is what soul does. And then that starts melting away the ego things. Over time you start trusting him more and more, and you're like, oh, my soul really does love me. It really does have my highest
good and
self in
good.
mind.
Yeah.
Highest good in mind.
And I think at the beginning, it probably took me 6 years to really understand how much this wasn't just a psychological game or something, like an active writing practice I was doing, and start to be like, it's a crazy feeling when you realize that we are multidimensional beings, and there's a part of you and me watching us in this moment, rooting for our spiritual evolution from love and witnessing this moment. Like, I think that's just mind-blowing that we're being so loved in every moment, and our souls understand it's challenging down here. It's like hard with real dense energies on the planet and stress.
And we can show people more what that soul looks like with the Q&A and such, because we'll start looking at people's high selves psychically and helping them get that information. And that being said, that it takes time to build that relationship, but you can also have these amazing experiences spontaneously. And the first time you dialogue with your soul, some people might be more spiritually ready. They've been kind of prepping to get to this point. And sometimes it just hits you like a truck, and you don't expect it and you weren't ready for it. So it takes a little bit more building up to it later.
And you definitely don't need relationship to do any of this work, external physical relationship, because I think some of the most highly evolved around these energies are like monks and nuns, who they are celibate their whole life, but they are really in love, and they're so in relationship to those divine energies, and embodying it. So it's, there's something for everyone to do around it.
So that the embodiment part of it, can you talk a little more about that? Why is embodiment of the sacred masculine and divine feminine so important, and how does that feel? What can you tell people about that?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I wonder if I should go into this one. There's so many things.
I know. I feel like we could talk for hours.
I would say the strongest spiritual tool is love. Love is the strongest tool we have on this planet. So when Elisa was talking about the nuns and the monks, I think you really find the spiritual people when they have a love relationship with God. It's not
personal.
It's not an ideal relationship, and love is something you feel and you embody. So you're feeling it throughout your whole body. So that to me is the embodiment piece, and when you really start being successful spiritually, when you start really transforming your own body and your cells and your vibration is when you have that love relationship, which is the embodied relationship. And me and Lisa always focus on that. Elisa and I always focus on
We're working on changing Adam has a me and Elisa have it. It's so ingrained. His mother was an English teacher. How did this happen?
Things, life goals.
Yeah.
We can work on divine masculine,
grammar goals.
But we have to work on grammar.
Yeah. But the embodiment piece is everything, because otherwise we're just in our head with these concepts where we're really smart and maybe arguing from like false masculine or the false feminine, but we don't have the love incarnated in our bodies. And what this planet is dying for is that visceral connection that comes through that relationship. So that's why at our retreats we do the Awakening from the Heart retreat is all embodiment stuff. It's very intimate and direct. I have a trailer on my site that shows it, and I really love people to see that, because usually it kicks off embodiment stuff, for like just seeing it. People start to have embodiment experiences, which is why we're creating a film that we want to do free to raise consciousness on the planet that we're working on, that Adam's directing. Actually, you know what's a good example of the divine masculine feminine is Meet Your Soul, because when I write in a very feminine way, so I'm like repetitive and flowing and poetic and all over.
She writes cylindrically.
Yeah, in big circles. And then Adam would read. I had first, actually with my publisher, I was contracted for a different book. And then Sophia, my soul, was like, actually, you're going to do this book first. And I was like, oh God, because I don't know how they're going to feel about that, because it's not even written. And I gave Adam the notes, and he was like, this is a mess. Like, what is it saying? Because it was all Sophia's voice and was all over the place, and there was no masculine in the book. There was no structure of like how it related.
And I could never write as beautifully as Elisa writes, you know, so she had this soul channeling where it was like these sentences that you really feel, you know, when
they're meant to be transmissions. The words were meant to be like poetry, right? You can feel poetry in your body. Your head might not even know what's going on.
Yeah, but it wasn't a linear structure, you know.
But he was so frustrated because he's like, what? This is this point again. So then we sat on the floor for weeks with papers, hundreds of papers, and he sat there with scissors, cutting and moving them into piles and categories so that they would make sense. And what I'm really proud of about Meet Your Soul, I mean, he's really the co-author. His name's not on the book, but he put in just as much work. And that's the best compliment we receive on the book is like, wow, I'm having a spiritual experience while I'm reading it, but it's also so clear to my head. I understand like the flow. So that can be what happens with that dance of masculine, feminine together.
So about the embodiment piece, you know, I think that we've so far have had mostly a masculine spiritual model in all spirituality, where it's that go up, you know, meditate, and it's information. It's like the book of, Taoism. Yeah, where it's all these, I mean, that's actually kind of an interesting book, but
the Tao Te Ching he's talking about.
Just sentences, blurbs that kind of make you think, that trip your mind, you know, out to expanding. And the feminine to me is that embodiment piece that's alive in the moment, that's really receiving God. But you need both, because at the Awakening retreats, what we do is these embodying transmissions where we bring the soul into the body, and people have these huge spiritual experiences. And I'm sure people on the call, and I don't know if you've had this too, Jocelyn, where you've had spiritual experiences where, you know, I've talked to like almost everybody has had some spiritual experience in their life. And that might've been a time of embodying, but then they also don't have the information or the tools to understand what happened to them. And that's the masculine piece that kind of helps us, the mind, understand what's happening to the body, but they're all, you know, extremely important. And I'm sure people on this call that are interested in divine feminine have had lots of those embodying and the information masculine experience too.
So what do you find in your work are the biggest blocks that people come up against for accessing these energies?
You know, one thing, this is kind of connected to that and your last question. I remember we were driving in the car after we dropped my older son off at school, and it was when we were newly together, and I felt the energy of the divine feminine come down into my body. I remember feeling obliterated, like I was like so blissfully experiencing everything, but my ego was terrified because I was like, how am I ever going to get anything done again? Like, how am I going to pack a lunch while my toddler's screaming, or, you know, like from this place? Because I didn't understand. The only way I understood power was with control on it. And she was just, there was no control energetically in my body. And so I felt like a noodle, like a loose noodle. Like I was like, how do you even move or even say things, like get your brain to like say a phrase? And so that was my first experience, and then learning to like integrate over time, like
and
how
your biggest
that works.
fear of being in the feminine. So I think
Yeah, and I
about
still do have that fear come up, like when she comes in, and I'm like, oh, it's so big. But and I think for you, in terms of when, do you remember the first time you felt the masculine really come in?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about that?
I would say, well, for me, my blocks on the masculine was, not understanding power as a good thing, understanding power as something power over from a false place.
It's
and
trusting that he's being guided by love to direct instead of like power tripping over me for some reason, you know, like trying, and I can sense, because I'm his twin, I can sense that's not the case. So I have to convince him in those moments sometimes, like, no, this feels, in my body, it's like a total, you can just tell, right?
Yeah. So I believe that the masculine is most embodied when he's doing, in action, which is different than the feminine. The feminine is kind of like when there's stopping, the action is halted. Yeah. And so to do that, to really be in love when you're in action and doing something, just requires really deep trust in yourself and in your soul direction. So I would say the most common block with the men I've worked with too is just really trusting yourself enough to move in that, to not just think about it, to not just sit with it, but to like take action, make choices.
Do you know what's a good example? I didn't run this by Adam beforehand, so I might be embarrassing him. Yeah. But I was thinking this morning about how when we first met and we were having these feelings of what was going on spiritually, but we didn't understand. And he said to me, when he felt my soul, he's like, oh, you've been what I've been looking for in every sunset and every star, the beauty that I felt, that pull of like which to me is like the divine feminine. And when he said that, looking at me with that energy at me, I was like, you are crazy. Because I was so used to also having projections on me, and I hate projections on me. So I was like, you don't even know me, or like, that's not who I am, you know, like, and that has been consistently 5 years later, like true in every moment, is that he's not lying, which is crazy to me, like still to my brain.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then for me, the experience of looking for him when I felt him in the beginning was like, I've always felt alone. I've always felt like no one can deeply, deeply see, reflect, and mirror me. And we can also do that internally with our journaling. I think is what's so great about journaling is you do get that reflection. But to have in another human was really trippy for me. Somebody who focuses on projection of like, oh, when he says he's seeing me, he's like actually seeing me. And that made me feel so vulnerable and also so relieved, because I've been like, oh my God, to be seen without projections. And actually, Adam just got a testimonial from a client who's a female. And I told him this morning, this is like the highest level of compliment, because she said, I've always been scared working with men, you know, because of just previous stuff that can be projected that's unsafe. And she's like, working with Adam, it was the first time with a male I felt really safe, because I think because he's clear on where his feminine is, there's not this weird sexual courting bull stuff that comes out about who you want someone to be. And so he can just appreciate like somebody's soul cleanly without an agenda.
Yeah. I would say, I know this is probably a lot of information for everybody so far. We've been trying to load in a lot here. So I just wrote a blog about the masculine and feminine that's on my website, that kind of goes into sort of more basic definitions of the energy and what it feels like. But one thing I'd like to say that I think is important is the masculine is the witnesser. So he's that soul that's right at that edge of God, that's just witnessing the beauty of the world and such, and the one that has that non-attachment and that direction. And why I say that is because the masculine, unrelated to the feminine, who's just kind of it's all good and detached from life, feels purposeless. He feels lost. He doesn't really have meaning in his life, and he doesn't have beauty in his life. He can be super directive, like I've seen a lot of super conscious men who are doing great in their lives. They're like succeeding at their business. They have they make all the best choices, but they just feel empty and there's no meaning. And that is because when it's all good, when you're detached from life, that's the same as death almost. It's just sort of it is all good. It's so good if I'm alive or if I'm dead, so it's not this relating of wanting to be alive. And but when the masculine's related to the feminine, what he's doing is he's looking at the feminine soul, and being awed by her beauty. It's like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I describe it sometimes like looking at a flower and just being like, this is so gorgeous. And then suddenly he has a reason to be alive. He has purpose in his life, and he has color in his life. And it's through seeing her that he finds spiritual satisfaction. And the reverse with the feminine is when she's just the flower, when she's just color, when she's just life, when she's just beauty, she can't always see herself. She's just in the moment. She's ecstatic and she's experiencing everything. And she can feel directionless. She can feel lost in the experience. And so she can kind of be too incarnated in a way. It's kind of like, like on the earth, but not being able to see the heavens in some way, because it's just the experience of the world. So when she's witnessed, when she feels somebody witnessing her, when she feels that penetration of a spiritual gaze, then she's like, oh, I am these things. I am this beautiful. And she gets an even bigger experience of herself, and an opening experience. And for me, that's the whole purpose of incarnating. That's why humans separate from God and live their lives on the planet, to slowly become conscious of themselves as humans, as this form
and as divine. And I think that's what's so beautiful about soul journaling. You get that feminine experience of being, because you're bringing her in, or him in, but then you're also having the witness of the masculine. So you're seeing yourself. So your ego's changing. And I know for a fact I couldn't have received Adam or been in this relationship if I hadn't really already done that work so much. And I think also I used to date surfers, and I think that's an example of I think what I loved, what I was so attracted to in the surfer, is the masculine who's seeing the beauty of the wave. His feminine, his goddess, is the ocean, which sucks if you're dating that person sometimes, because you're like, I want to be your ocean. And sometimes they're so finding the feminine in the ocean. So you're competing for the feminine. That's not, of course, true all the time. Only the ones I seem to date. Don't
date surfers.
So, the first divine masculine and feminine is be careful of surfers and musicians. And he's a musician. And then also sometimes with men, when they're puer, so they're like the eternal boy, and they haven't gotten that spiritual maturity yet in their senex energy, they're older masculine. Sometimes they'll get the feminine through their group of friends. We were just looking energetically at somebody the other day who it's like his wife, he can't see the feminine in his wife because he has this group of dudes that hang out and they have drum circles and do all this fun energy together, so that he's getting his feminine met through his group of friends playing together, putting body paint and running through the forest and Burning Man. And that's not bad, but it's just also just shows we're always in relationship with the energies, and we're going to need them, and we might get them in different ways. And knowing about that can be really useful, in a relationship or whatever.
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah, that was really beautiful what you said, Adam, about why the masculine needs the feminine and why the feminine needs the masculine. I love that. Really, really. That's great.
I think that applies to all of life, not in relationship as well. I think that the spiritual practice of the masculine is to be able to see the feminine in all things. The way that Elisa was saying that I saw her in the sunset and the stars, I still do see her there, because that's the feminine of my life.
I think what's cool, that what we teach about Holy Love, the retreat we do together in the summer, is about how in relationship do you have, there's 6 relationships. There's Elisa to Adam, and then Elisa to Adam's soul, Adam to Sophia, and then our souls together. And then it's also Elisa to Sophia and him to his soul. So, and once you get that and can start to really talk, like if Adam's in a thing and he might be pissy, I can talk to his soul about what Adam needs to know right now to help get him closer to Adam. And thank God he can do that for me, because he helps me out of tons of things because he can do that. And then sometimes we're having like astral sex when we're physically doing nothing. We call it lazy sex, where we're just like, so there's
that's our running joke.
That's our running joke.
We're
We're like,
exhausted with kids all the time.
after
we'll just have astral sex.
We're too lazy to have actual sex. Just laying in bed, astral sex. Yeah,
that might have been too much
too much. Everybody's shutting down. So yeah, there's like so many ways that these things can all play together, and it can be so useful as a tool to understand the multidimensional reality in relationship or internally with your own self. So
I'd like to check in with people at this point, because I feel like we just
what are the people thinking about this?
So much information. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, I feel like
we
we're
know.
gonna be all over.
Yes, I cannot wait to hear the questions that people have. Yeah. So before we open it up for that, let me just share your invitation to your retreat. And I'm going to put this in the chat so that people can easily go and take a look at it. Would you guys want to just tell a little bit about this as I'm putting the link over here?
Yeah. So Holy Love is the first time we're doing a Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine retreat. So we've done a couple retreats. We're starting to do an annual awakening retreat, which is all about soul embodiment. And it's just the awakening retreat is very little information. It's just getting that embodied experience. The Holy Love is going to be understanding the divine masculine and feminine and oneself and in relationship, and how to use that in all relationships. And we're going to do a lot of
in your own spiritual relationship.
We're going to do a lot of practices to activate your divine masculine and feminine, so everybody will leave having a feeling of what their divine masculine or feminine is, so that they can, go
understanding your soul percentages for your own spiritual path, but also if that is interesting in terms of relationship. You definitely do not need to be in a relationship to come to the retreat. It's, my goal is that if a monk or a nun came, they would get just as much out of it in terms of the dynamics. So yeah, it's cool.
Yes. For everyone who's interested, who's live on the call, check out the chat. You can click on the link straight from there and check it out. And then also, if you're listening to this as a recording, just look right below the video and the link will be right there, so you can click through to that as well. So, okay, so let's go to the Q&A and see what questions we have. So anybody who would like to ask a question or further discuss a topic that we touched on, go ahead and raise your hand. So we have T Ming is going to be the first person that we bring over to talk with us here.
And I once heard if you feel really nervous when you think that question, that probably means you have something to come through for you.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, T Ming. Welcome.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi.
Elisa and Adam.
Hi.
Hi. So I was always wondering, because I feel like I'm kind of like a take action kind of person, usually, most of the time. So
is there any way we can see your face?
More of a masculine soul.
Can you not see her?
No.
Oh, I can see her. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now we couldn't see you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, what were you saying?
Oh, so I was saying, I just feel I have more of a masculine kind of soul, because I feel like I like to take action most of the time, but I don't know if that's like my conditioning since childhood, or it's just part of my soul design.
It's interesting because I looked at your energy before I could see you. and so the first thing I got was that, and I think it's those percentages again. It's not like, right, that it's going to be all feminine or all masculine, but I could feel the part of you that is so feminine that doesn't quite know yet what that means in terms of how it's authentic to you, how it's not about any reaction to anything else externally. Talk a little bit more about how you feel this, or how you are, what makes you even wonder about this question.
Well, I feel drawn to like whole women's circles and things like that, to do that locally. but I also feel like this urge to create, make stuff, to do activities, not just sit there and just have fun. I don't know. I have this pull and push between having fun and working hard and earning money. And sometimes I feel like my husband is doing all the work. He's like the big money earner in our household. And I just feel like I want to help out, but
Yeah.
there's this
And don't want
tension.
it.
Yeah. So my sense with you is there's a part of you that is already very comfortable with your masculine part, that can kind of already feel him and connect to him, and you're still waiting to really feel the feminine part of your soul, and I don't think you're going to get that through model, like seeing a soul model of it. Is going to be about discovering your own feminine. So I think that's why you're a little disappointed by these feminine circles, because you're showing up and you're like, this is cool, I relate to this a little bit, but I'm not really having this incarnation experience.
Well,
right
it's
now.
even right now. So where your energy is in this moment, can you feel how much is here in your head?
Yeah, I'm always here in my head.
Yeah. And guess what? A lot of that is actually because you've been programmed through whatever, family, culture, that's how you're supposed to know yourself. Now, see, Jocelyn, can you even see how she just shifted energetically? Just talking about that for 1 second, you already look energetically different. Do you feel it's a little bit further back in your head? Slowly moving. Yeah. So it's like the center of the head practice on my meditations. I have free meditations on my site. That one's good because it's moving your consciousness back just half an inch. So it's literally our analyzer is between our temples, and that's where we think from, right? We're out here like, why is this problem? I have this problem. It doesn't feel right. But we're never going to feel good from that place, right? Because that's a place of consciousness where we're moving our identity to. So if you start to move yourself back a little bit energetically, which is just through relaxing, because your true self is actually more in the feminine in that place. So you don't have to do anything. You just have to kind of deprogram the addiction to needing to know things from your head, which is your false masculine, because if it was your true masculine, it would feel like you. It would feel like, oh, this is home. But because it feels like something's like off when you're knowing yourself from that place, that's how you know it's not the most deepest understanding and feeling of how you are. So it's, I would think, setting structures, the masculine in your life that help you flow in your feminine. So whether that's like, I'm thinking of that Watsu massage is like a really feminine practice where someone's holding you, and we have on Bainbridge Island where we live, they have this yurt where you can go that's warm, and they have a warm pool, and the chiropractor will hold you in the water and move your body, and it like allows you like to go into a womb state like a baby, where you're kind of like coming, embodiment practice, coming alive again in places where you've been holding. So to be held and witnessed by someone else, and you're knowing yourself, it's a practice where you're beginning to feel yourself outside of your mind.
Yeah.
Or Tai Chi or Qigong, or, you know, or music or sculpting, pottery. I think anything that helps you experience, but while you're not thinking about it. But it's more of a feminine practice. So it's not just going to be mindfulness meditation, because that's a little more of a masculine practice. It's like, what feminine practices can you choose that allow you to
feeling states,
be in a feeling state?
Can I do a little bit of energy work on you? Can I guide you through something for a second? Sure. So yeah. So let's try this. I want you to first just are you holding your computer?
I'm holding my phone.
Your phone. Oh wow.
Here, I'll put it down.
Yeah, if you can put it down, that'd be great. So just put your feet on the floor, and I want you to rest your hands on your lap, up like this, palms up, in kind of a relaxed way, and just lean back, like as much as you can, and just take a deep breath. And when you exhale, just imagine like a wave crashing over you, like it's going throughout your whole body, and it's relieving stress and tension. I want you, can you lean back a little further? The feeling is not an upright feeling. It's kind of a melting feeling. I don't know if you have a comfortable backrest or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
about that?
feeling is just letting the shoulders release back and
That's
just
good.
like melting and with the heart opening and the chest expanding and just letting go of thoughts. And it's like you're like, imagine yourself falling backwards into like the comfiest bed you've ever experienced. It's just like softness and it's comfiness. This is the state where you're going to find your feminine. This is the state where you're going to start to get to know her. It's just this total like release, just releasing. And it doesn't make sense. It's not going to make sense why this works. It's just going to be an experiential feeling. And you will notice your body getting more relaxed as you do this. So I want you to kind of do this daily, where you just practice this just like sigh of relief. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be an intensive exercise. Nothing should be hard about it. It should only be a few seconds. But it's just sort of like multiple times a day when you can, just practice this like releasing. And when you do that, you'll start noticing yourself going deeper and deeper every day until you become familiar with this feeling that's just relaxed and ecstatic and this is the part that doesn't care about your schedule or what's happening or the conflicts in your life. It's just this state that's kind of like, I just feel relaxed. And my point in getting you here is not to get you to a mindless Zen place, but it's to get you to this place where you just feel comfortable and safe in your body, and then where the feelings just kind of roll in and roll out, and just let any feeling happen to you. If you feel sadness or if you feel joy, just kind of let it roll through you. Don't think about it. Let it pass or come back. So I think when you start doing this, that you'll start to meet your feminine more and more. And I think people will notice that. I think your husband will notice that.
Your husband will definitely notice that.
And it will make him happy, even if he feels like he's doing the heavy lifting of the work.
He'll be happier
really,
about the heavy lifting he's doing when he feels that.
Really, all the masculine wants is for his feminine to be happy. And what I mean by happy is not the false happiness of all these, Stepford wives on paper towel commercials, but is this, it can be sad, it can be this, but it's allowing yourself to just be you. And of all the emotions that's coming up and flowing through you, your husband, he can't articulate what he wants right now. He doesn't really know what he wants. But when he starts seeing that in you, he's going to be so charged towards you. I'm getting you so
charged is a good word.
Charged.
Attracted.
Because that's what he wants. That's why he fell in love with you, was because of your essence. It's not
it's like
because of
looking,
anything.
It's like that looking in the stars for beauty all the time too, right? And it's like, or the wave. So it's like when the wave shows up in this physical form in front, where you're not pretending to be anything. You're just getting the blissful experience of your true self in your body. And then that meeting occurs, whether you're touching or not. It can just be looking at each other across the room. There's such a beautiful relationship thing that.
And the thing about the masculine love and the feminine is he doesn't love the feminine for what she does at all. He doesn't love the feminine for her actions. He loves the feminine for who she is, for her essence. And so that's what this practice is bringing out in you. And I think that you'll let go of that fear of being like, I need to help out more and do more, help him with what he's doing, because it will just feel more right to you. My other advice is, if you're in one of these feminine circles and it feels wrong, or these feminine retreats you're going to just leave. Because you'll know what's right for you, what feels good for you. And I think if you're unsure,
go back to that state, and then you can bring it in energetically. Imagine that group, and does it feel like you can be that energy in the group? That's one way to tell if it's a fit or not.
Yeah. Some people I think are supposed to, everybody's soul lessons is different, how they're going to learn the feminine. For you, I see how you're learning the feminine is going to be really relaxed. It's going to be really easeful. It's not going to be fighting through the anxiety to force yourself to find the feminine, to be like, I should go to these retreats, or I should
the masculine way to find the feminine.
It's going to just be through relaxing. And maybe your feminine just wants to sit in sweatpants for 3 hours, opposed to, you know, going outside the house and putting on your clothes to go learn the feminine, you know, the action of going somewhere else to get it. Or to find a really relaxed setting where you can feel that feeling of that you're at home in your sweatpants. Like maybe it's a place where you feel that level of comfort.
Yeah. And I did think about there's this fear of letting go, or fear of being out of control.
Yes. That's exactly what I experienced too. And actually, I'm still recovering my false masculine addiction. So Adam helps me. Sometimes I'll be like, you know, we've got so much to do. There's so much to do every day with my business, with the kids. And he'll say, you know, you have to be sustainable, to function, especially in my business, what I do for my business. You have to go over to the barn, the soul barn, in my private studio and take an hour and sit with no agenda, which can be terrifying to my ego sometimes, and just put on music and move my body and let Sophia come through, or do poetry, or have a really loose structure to allow her to come through and dance. And so I think it's really great to use your masculine to create a structure where you're allowing your feminine to come play regularly, so that you start to feel better about releasing that control, because it is scary. We've been told, and there's also a reality that the feminine on the planet hasn't been safe. And the statistics with just sexual abuse, and, you know, in terms of the feminine more than the masculine also has that issue. But I mean, there's real threat. So creating safe places in your life where you can start to explore how that feels comfortable. She felt really friendly to me. When I feel your soul, she feels very soft, which is actually different than my soul. She does not come in like friendly. She's like, oh, I'm here. So I think you have a beautiful journey that's just going to be fun and relaxing and easeful. And
the ego does clink, you know, so you are feeling that very real, like, I don't really want to let go, you know.
That's the ego death that we have to get good at melting consciously.
Yeah. I think guided meditations will be helpful, like having a masculine voice that's guiding you through it. So I would check out a few of the free meditations on Elisa's site. But
I'm saying I'm a masculine voice, kind of.
Well, I introduce your video, so meditation.
No, but it is a masculine energy.
It's somebody else taking the steering wheel, so you can relax. But I would say that do start out first with what I just showed you, because it's so simple that you won't need a lot of guiding or work with it. It's just as simple, like, just, you know, it's like getting used to cold water. You know, you kind of like walk in a little bit and just like kind of get used to it first, and so you're going to keep doing that, and you're going to get deeper and deeper into the water as you go.
I always use the term tolerating love, because when the love comes in, it's hard to, we're like, I want love, but when the love really comes in, it can feel really overwhelming to receive, because what you look like to me when you're doing that was she's in her receptive, she's in her feminine, so it can be scary to receive. And so it's tolerating, building like a muscle, your ability to continue to tolerate more love. And that's the soul journaling practice too. If you send me an email, I'll send you a chapter from my book about how to soul journal, because that would be super helpful too, is starting that practice so that you can tolerate more and more in your physical container.
And we're very excited for you, because I can feel your soul. She's a beautiful soul. It feels like that this is going to be the beginning of some really good things.
Let us know. Send us emails how it's going.
Yeah.
All right, I will. Thank you.
Lots of love your way. Thanks for doing that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Timmy.
Publicly.
Yeah.
All right. We have 4 more people with hands raised. So let's see. I will bring over Laura. And should be here in just a second.
This is so fun.
It didn't work. Okay, let me try that again. All right, Laura, trying to bring you over. Okay, there we go. Welcome, Laura. Hi.
Hi, thanks. Hi, Adam. Hi, Elisa. Good to see you. So my question is, as you are describing the masculine and feminine, and how the masculine really, between the man and a woman, that it's that feeling of what just the way you described looking into the stars, and it just, I've never felt anything like that. I've never felt that. Usually what in my relationships that I've had, I have felt like I need to hide my feminine, because as soon as I start to bring it out and be what I feel like is more my true self, usually that is not met well by the person that I'm with. So where is my imbalance here? Is it something that I'm attracting? Am I missing part of my masculine where I'm looking outside of myself to try to compensate for that?
I see that you have felt your feminine. I think so. When you think about your daughter and your love for her and that deep love that's just friendly and familiar and is, it's beyond yourself. It's bigger than yourself, that love.
Yeah.
I feel like you have very, very feminine love for her and feelings there, like a mother to daughter. And like, I see the vision of you guys like having popcorn and watching a movie, like, or something like that. It feels like you have these girls' nights or moments where you're kind of like, this is just the best. We're like snuggling up and like with ice cream or something, and like, and those to you, you just are like, this feels great. Like, and that's your feminine. So you have felt her. So and I think it's fleeting and it's between things, and you have like lots of work to do. Not self-work. I mean like physical, actual, literal work during your days. So I think that you're like, oh, I haven't felt my feminine, or because that's such a fleeting moment. But next time you're with your daughter and you feel that feeling where you're just like have that little moment of glee where you're like, oh, this is like awesome. Notice it, because that part of yourself is really relaxed. That part of yourself is really trusting, because, and it's not so much because of the literal moment happening. It's because your heart has unconditional love for your daughter. It's because that's the part of you that trusts it. You're like, and it's not going to be describable why you trust it. There's not really, life is uncertain. Like, there's no reasons for you to trust. There's not a good reason to trust.
Right.
Except for your unconditional love just does. And so that part of yourself, and if you want to start doing feminine practices and bringing them more into your life, it's about finding that part. You can just visualize seeing your daughter and that, like, and that feeling, what that feels like. And that will feel very familiar. You'll be like, oh, that's me. That is me as feminine. And like what I want to say is that masculine and feminine is never about rules. It's never about like, oh, this is your practice for becoming feminine. These are the rules you have to stand by. You can't do this work, or to become masculine, you got to follow these rules. It's about finding your individuated feminine. About everybody's feminine is different. Everybody's feminine soul is different. And so when you feel that love, you're going to recognize it as you, because it's just that most powerful unconditional love that is uniquely yours. It's the only way that you can love your daughter. And it's not just because she's your daughter, it's because you are you, and you're giving her that flavor of love. So yeah, I think that.
And then my sense from there is that the more you're consciously aware of her and building that relationship consciously, then it becomes in the forefront of any relationship externally that you're having, because then you're more identified as her. So soul journaling as well will do the same thing, right? Where you're just, the more I was like, I am Sophia, the more I recognized Sophia had to be in my relationship, which is why I'm not married to my first husband anymore, which was really painful process, because it was like, oh, Sophia's not allowed here. And when I started that relationship, not, this is nothing against him, because when I met him, I wasn't as conscious of Sophia. She was my own private thing, but it wasn't that I knew enough. She wasn't embodied enough to demand it and need it in the relationship. So then as I'm falling in love with her, then it became more apparent I had to like choose like her or him, because even though he could try, he's a good guy to his best of his ability, he just wasn't in relationship with that type of thing. So
that happens to a lot of people when they meet young in projections, and they don't know who they are yet. And then their relationship develops, they discover who they are, and then they realize that partner doesn't know who they are. And that actually,
and that they didn't know who they were, which is, we're always doing the best we can with where we're at, everyone, you know, so it's not like against anyone. We're always on this consciousness path, but at the same time, it's about being honest with the energetics, right? Of like, you have a desire, a deep desire to bring her forward and to be seen there and met there. And that's awesome. That's totally okay and beautiful. And you're allowed to do that. And you're allowed to hold that bar. That's like, I'm not going to have a relationship where she's not welcome. And I know who she is because I felt her, and I fight for her because I talk to her every day. And so it's not like a weird, mysterious thing. It's just, yeah, she's going to be at the party or there's no party, you know?
Right.
Your next relationship, it just won't be able to happen. You won't be able to shut
That's
down.
my sense.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
you can't tolerate the knotted anymore. That's usually what happens is, right, we all just kind of get birthed into it. So Laura was at our awakening retreat. So she came and embodied her soul with the group last summer that the retreat video's from, and she was and is so courageous and brave and has done amazingly beautiful work of incarnating her soul, even though it's been scary and unknown about what that means for the physical world and how the chips are going to fall in the world. And we're so honored to know you, and all the work you've done is beautiful.
Well, thank both of you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't say enough. Can't say enough of the changes that have occurred in my life because of both of you. So it's been amazing.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
All right, I'm going to bring over Deborah to talk with us.
Hi, Deborah.
Okay, there we go. Welcome, Deborah.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Where are you at? What state are you in?
I am in Toronto.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Yes, I really want to thank you both. I really love your groundedness and your insights. And I resonate so much with what you have shared today. I also, having had numerous ecstatic experiences, ecstatic states within myself too, and at one point not understanding what that was. I mean, I do now. I do understand that, and being on a spiritual path pretty much my entire life, and having been married and have 3 amazing grown children now who are leading their own lives. But when my marriage ended, I was on my own for a while. And then I met someone whom I can only say it was such a sacred experience in all its intimacy. And it was something that I felt that I had not experienced fully until then. And we were together for about a year and a half, and it was time for it to end. We had completed what I sense that we came together to complete. And since that time, I've been on my own, happily on my own, for I'd say the past eight or so years. And I've reached a sense of fullness and completeness within myself. And it's a really marvelous place to be, and I'm so grateful. And yet, for over the past while, I have been feeling almost what I would call an openness to the possibility of being in relationship with someone. again.
Never
I'm certainly not seeking or searching for that. It will have to happen very organically. But I have that sense of opening to that. And yeah, I'd love to hear you speak more to that, if you would, please.
I just want to say that's a beautiful story you're telling us here, and I just want to summarize what I'm seeing on steps of that story energetically. So I'm gonna energetically summarize what you just told me a little bit. So I see when you talk about having your spiritual experiences, you had a pretty big one at one point. That
and
was
a lot of sixth chakra stuff. Like I'm seeing tons of visuals and a psychic element opening.
So what having big spiritual experiences can be really scary and can make the ego feel very vulnerable. And so kind of what I see was you were at one point getting tons of information. You had these big spiritual experiences, and then this sort of loneliness after that, because it's like, whoa, this thing happened to me. How do I understand it? Because it's such a life-altering experience, and me and Lisa, we had lots of really big experiences in the beginning, and a lot of what we're doing is just integrating what already happened, and so I see spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to integrate it, and not getting a lot of soul reflection during that time. And correct me if any of this is wrong, but it feels to me like so you have these experiences, and there's nobody that can really directly tell you exactly what happened to you, except for you. So you're kind of trying to figure it out along the way.
But she also I feel like her soul's so feminine, and she's like, I'm more resistant than you are. Like I can see how you integrated your experiences feels a lot more like less stubborn than I actually am, because it feels like you're more comfortable with your feminine than actually I was, in terms of how you receive the world, because it feels like you're very naturally okay with being in the flow in the moment, in your feeling experience of things in the poetic world, so actually your integration looks beautiful, because it feels like you have experience. I think what Adam's talking about is once we have a feeling of home, God home, there's always almost like a longing for it afterwards. And sometimes it can be almost like a heroin addict where it's like, I got that hit, how do I go back? But it also becomes the new North Star. We've seen a reality that is more real than any other reality we've known. So now we have this imprint of a map, energetically within us. And so your integration of that looks beautiful, because it feels like you grounded it in the body. I can feel how much work you did to make it pure. You're not out of your body inflated or spiritually bypassing. You've done incredible, which actually is a really common side effect to the type of experiences you've had. Do you know what I'm talking about? So you did a really nice weaving with the experience. And then it feels like you got a soul dose from that, whatever you want to call it, the second partner, right? So whether that's a twin or an incredible soulmate, you got like that medicine of how your soul was dancing with the masculine feminine through that partnership that was a reflection, like was getting that soul reflection.
And then what I see is after that relationship, it feels fully integrated.
It
feels like, oh, now I feel like a whole person. Now I have really integrated all this. And that's the part of you that feels that happiness being alone at some point. You're like, oh, now I can just be happy.
I'm good.
As myself, like I don't need relationship. And I think that now that you've spent a decent amount of time being in the state of like, I don't need relationship, you're like, well, now that I feel completely comfortable with the part of myself that doesn't need this, it might be nice to have somebody.
What would it be like to play and dance as this whole energy with another whole energy? And create an alchemy potentially of a third universe that we could party with. What's that third transcendent function that we can go in and out of and play? And because you're very feminine anyway, in your percentages, that just is kind of juicy and fun and and interesting idea.
Yeah, but I think the next person you're going to meet is going to be a whole person as well.
Yeah,
And
because you're
that's
not
what's gonna
going
be
to,
exciting
you
about
wouldn't settle for not that. And because you don't need to. And it feels like, you know, the state you're in is the best manifestation state anyway, right? Where it's like not coming from anxiety or pushing or going upriver. You're kind of like, it's a powerful place that you're manifesting from. So
it. It feels like a really great place to be in. Like, Elisa and I, from our soul level, are very proud of your life. It feels.
We're proud of your life.
I'm proud of you. I just felt like I wanted to say
Proud
that.
of your life.
I know we don't know each other. I'm proud of you still. You know, it just feels beautiful. It feels soul orchestrated. You know, and I think that for each step of the way, you've had this openness of willing to be open to whatever happens, whatever outcome.
She is telling me, your soul is telling me though, that you will find this person by coming out a little bit more publicly. So I don't know what that means in terms of your project you're working on or something, but she's like, you need to put that out because that's the signal for, so this person can find you, which actually was my path as well, where I was like, I don't want to start talking. I'm a people pleaser. I mean, a lot of these topics are not comfortable. I can feel when people are not comfortable. Why do you know? So, but yeah, my soul's like, I don't care if you're comfortable. You know, this is who you are. So
just gonna be yourself.
Flexing your masculine right now muscle to support your feminine publicly and get it out there.
You have no idea, well, maybe you do, how spot on you are. And Adam, what you spoke to earlier about me feeling alone also was spot on in terms of that was some of those high energy experiences were around the time my marriage, my long-term marriage, actually, father of my children, was in its demise, so to speak. And I did have a community of support around me, women's circles. I was doing a lot of shamanic work. So I did have the support around me. However, it wasn't in my partner, whom I would have really been happy if it had, but it hadn't. So I have, you know, I've moved on from that.
Those
And
spiritual experiences often happen to us when we need a shove. You know what I mean?
yes.
Lisa would have not been together if it were not for the big spiritual pieces we had. We did not want to do this. We're like, we're not, you know, it was not our plan. Like, I was moving to LA. I had an apartment.
I was married.
Yeah. So it was not what we want. Our egos wanted to do. And so I think when we're in a place where our egos really are like, okay, I'm going to, you know, be here. We have these spirit experiences that are so big that they shatter our ego.
There was no hope for my attachment and plan anymore, because it was like I'd be slapping God in the face because it was so obvious. And I would try. We totally tried. And I actually had people in my life that were consulting my career saying, like, you're going to lose everything. Nobody's going to come to a marriage and family therapist who left her husband for this younger music. People thought I was having a midlife crisis. And I was like, that would have been so much easier if it was just that simple. Like, I was just wanting to like have sex with a younger man. Like, that would have been the easy version of this story. Yeah, the soul has a plan.
When we have that ego shattering, it is a shattering. It's scary.
Yes.
It's very scary. And
yeah.
And
it was at that time thereafter, within months, within a year probably, was when I did end. I made the first step into ending my marriage, which floored me really. But it was a knowingness. It was a calmness. It was a knowingness that was what was in highest good for both of us and for our family.
And
interesting.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just keep wanting to say the word proud. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's just, I see that you have really done a fucking lot of work. You have done a lot, and you've had to really daily center yourself and be like, okay, I'm going out there. And I think just every day you've been brave through these experiences, and you've been
shown up
mostly alone for it. You've been really like, okay, I'm gonna do this today. And And I think, do you have a morning practice or something you tell yourself in the morning? Like I see you motivating yourself in the morning. You wake up, you feel vulnerable and scared, and you're like, okay, no, I got this. And then because you've been doing that, every day you bring your soul to the table. And I think that's beautiful. And you've been doing that for many, many years. So
as you probably know, most people are dabblers with this work. Most people are not working to the degree you're working. And we benefit from it. It's like, to me, it's the smartest investment for investing in anything. That's why we came to the planet. Why would we not just be obsessed with this work? That's how I feel. But,
and you're allowed to feel relief right now. You're allowed to cry right now if you want to. You're allowed to be like, you made it. You made it to this point in time. You know, you've traveled a long distance and you should be proud of yourself. Things that looked externally wrong, that were internally correct, you know, that you haven't gotten reflection on, like you have made it. You have followed that internal guidance. You have followed the most beautiful, highest part of yourself and gotten to this point. So again, I just want to say we're really proud of you.
We're proud of you.
And thank you. And you will be more proud of me to know that I have made a commitment with Jocelyn to, I've shared with her some of my experiences, my near-death experience when I was 12 and various mystical experiences I've had. And I've made the commitment to work with Jocelyn. She's going to help me recontextualize some of my experiences and put them out there. Develop a web, and that is scary. That's the masculine part, I suppose, and that's scary. But I've made the commitment.
It's the project. I was like, "What's the project? We got a soul project in the works here."
Yeah,
soul project. I wrote a blog called "Being Pregnant with Soul Project." You can check it out. It's the stage.
I will.
The stages of pregnancy and birth. Yeah.
And Jocelyn will be great at that.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, she's really good at getting
space
the masculine and feminine online.
And yes.
We're proud of you, Jocelyn. Yeah. We're proud of you.
Yeah, well, Deborah, I just want to really honor you for just stepping up and following your inner guidance, because I know when you shared on our dream group, our dream symposium, you had a lot of resistance to that, but you did it anyway, and that just has started this whole new thing rolling for you, which is so beautiful. Yeah. And you're really listening to that guidance to share your insights and your work.
It's time. It's time.
It is time. At this point, you know who you are, you know? Like you're like, okay, I know it. I know who I am, and all it is about just being like, hey world, this is who I am.
Sophia, my soul, once told me when I was like, why is nobody seeing me? Why? This is before Adam, and she said, you can't be seen if you're hiding. And I was like, how am I? I'm hiding? And she was like, yeah, you're still hiding. And so I had to really look at where that was and then how to rectify that. So, putting it out there. Yeah. Time to put it out there.
Yeah. I've been hiding for a long time. Which is an important phase. You know, it's an important phase for
building our strength, right? With us knowing what it is.
Elisa uses the metaphor as when you first start meeting your soul as it's like a young sapling, you know? You don't plant a young tree in a windstorm. You don't put yourself out there in the world vulnerable to ridicule, vulnerable to these things until you're like, have a sturdy tree trunk. And then when you do, then you are ready. And that tree needs sunlight, you know?
Mm-hmm. And wants to shine and wants to show and wants to, you know, bless everyone else with what the harvest of what you've done.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. It has been an absolute pleasure and honor being introduced to you both today. I will definitely check out more of your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deborah.
I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
I'm proud of you.
All right. Wonderful. So let me bring over Ibtisam. Now, Ibtisam has been participating all throughout this whole 3-day event, and so I'm sure she has something really beautiful to share. And she has been on a journey just in this 3 days. So anyway, I'll let you all take it from here.
Oh,
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. It's just wonderful hearing you both, and you have such a different perspective from where I'm coming from. Predominantly my work has been with couples, and when Deborah was talking, I was just feeling, do I need to lower my hand? Because in a way, when you were sharing with her, it felt you were talking to me. And then, everything that you were even talking about for yourself, it felt when you just said, you've got to show up, you can't stop hiding. And that just felt like that's exactly what I've been doing for so long. And it's how you say, in a way, opportunities or circumstances or synchronicities occur where you have to show up and you're trying desperately to kind of get going in your like a total shell. And I think I've really, as you can see, completely ripped off my shell now. So I'm right there, and really grateful, Jocelyn. I mean, I don't know. My gratitude is just beyond everything right now.
Yeah. So.
And even Deborah's journey, I can actually feel what when you all were talking with her.
Go first.
We both have stuff we want to say right away.
So I can't see anybody. The names are like there's a bar in front of them, so I can't remember the name of the first woman we spoke to. But so I see every feminine soul is different, And for her, I was really getting her thing was to lean back. Yeah. I see your thing is to lean forward, and it
You're
really
good
feels,
at leaning back. You are so naturally like. You feel everything.
You're leaning back right now.
And through the body. You don't need embodiment practices. What you need is some structures for the big, huge, huge, huge downloads you're getting. How to walk with that because it's so big. That's how I felt too, where it's like, how do I translate this? How do I make this accessible for people? Your heart is beautiful. You have so much healing energy for the planet, and that, right? This isn't new information. Okay.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So it can be confusing when we think about the masculine as like the structure or the thing that puts us forward. I think the feminine can do the exact same thing, but it's in her own way.
Right.
And what I see is that you're going to be moving forward in the feminine. It's not going to be through like being like, okay, I'll sit down and I'll make the structure. Like lots of people do need that, because they're sort of in this. For you, that just feels dry and you don't feel like there's energy there. You're like, there's no life force. So you just, it just hits a wall. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it's like, bleh. And so I see when you, like your feminine to me feels fiery. She feels alive. She feels like
engaged
and bubbly. And I think that I'm really glad that you did come on the Q&A because I think it's important that people see that the feminine is not always, it's not receptive, but it's not always just laid back. And, in this state, it sometimes is this alive, the image I get is like somebody really dancing at a concert, like really in the front, like fist bumping or like this kind of maybe not fist bumping because that's the cheesiest dance I could imagine, but it feels like this, just life force. And I feel like that's where how you're going to come out. It feels like you're like writing these things online. It feels like you're doing these things that are just full of life and full of fire. And it's this kind of like, I don't give a fuck anymore.
Clearly I don't, after what I've done today.
I think you're ready. I think. Did you do this today?
It's been less than 3 hours.
Wow.
Do you know who your soul energy reminds me a little of? Do you know who Arundhati Roy is, who wrote The God in Small Things? I think you would love that book. You've read that book.
Yep.
So she's really interesting because she is so feminine. Her writing is so beautiful. I'm picky about fiction books because I have to feel, it can't just be like smart. I have to feel it in my body and have that, right? I love Annie Dillard for that and Anne Lamont. And Arundhati Roy has that where you're just, the sentences are beautiful. They're poetry. But then there's this beautiful structure to the story that's so wise and unfolding. And she's also a political political activist. And she's only, I think, written one fiction book, and then she's written kind of political pieces. But but what's funny is everything she writes, no matter what the genre, it's her soul energy is a transmission. And I think it's that thing Adam was talking about, where she's always very about the divine feminine and everything she's doing, even when she's showing up in a very almost like classically masculine, like arguing for human rights, you know.
So before you get off, I want to look at your soul and maybe have you get the information of what's the next
baby step
for your
because
business.
you feel things so hugely. Sorry. I relate to you a lot, so I'm getting all worked up because when you receive huge downloads, it's easy to get overwhelmed and then like, how do I even go forward? So you want to talk to the download, talk to that big energy about what does that look like in terms of bite-sized doable pieces.
And it's not so much about what you say, but the energy of what you say it in. So it can be like the simplest phrase. It can be like, love is great. And if you're saying it from your soul online, people are going to start feeling that. So you do coaching for couples?
I have stopped doing this 15 months ago. I've stopped my individual practice because, as I said, lots of stuff. Like one of the other questions I really have a burning question is, when I actually asked it in the Q&A, that, when you said the twin flame longing, how is that different from any other, like how when you're growing up, I have that special one who's just going to arrive in your life. How is that different? Because if that feels like, two things where I'm incredibly emotional, as the feminine is very alive. But the weirdest thing happened that I actually thought whilst my head was going to be, I even kind of prepared myself, and I had a long conversation with my daughter and husband yesterday. And I really prepared myself. But when that happened, there was not even a shed of tear. I just felt calm, very still. And I was just surprised. I mean, I've not cried even like one tear over the fact that I have cut off my lion's mane, which was my pride, my everything. And I'm just feeling really weird right now.
You know the metaphor about hair spiritually, right? And how it's a rebirth. This is, when you shave your head, when you cut your hair off, just like the tentacles of the old tentacles, it's time for the new receptors.
That's how I felt spiritually. I kept on feeling I need to get rid of this, because until this doesn't go, when you talked about the dry bits, Adam, the dry, I just felt everything was dry. It was autumn, which I was holding autumn and winter on my head, and it was just creating this dark, gloomy shadow, which I've had to, in a crazy way now, have to let go of it so that it can, the sun can come pouring in.
Yeah. And it's like a reset button. So now it's like a fresh start where everything growing, it's a metaphor, right? The hair, it's like we can literalize and concretize it, and then we can also come into the spiritual metaphor and why it would be a dream image. Why do people have dreams all the time of shaving and cutting their hair? What is hair energetically, metaphorically? It's about this. It's about updating the spiritual contracts into present time so that we're moving forward from our true selves and authenticity, and we're shedding. I think it was interesting you had lion's mane, right? Because that's like, there's so much with that. He's a lion, and both my boys are Leos. I got lions everywhere.
I'm a Leo too. I am a Leo.
Well, I'm gonna show you something while you keep talking.
Yeah.
So can you answer that question which I asked earlier? So if you know that there is someone there actually for you, does that actually mean that there is another twin flame, and is that different from just a normal craving? Because there is. That's my question.
Yeah, I think there's truth and falsity, and so I'm trying to understand your question a little. You're talking about when growing up and having sort of those fantasies of like who you're gonna marry.
Yeah, or you have a special one, that one person in your life.
Projection. And I had, when I was 13, I had like a love that felt beyond the ocean, and and it was mostly projective, but yet it felt through that experience like this is Romeo and Juliet happening, you know, and no one else understands. And so I think there's a lot of good books about how to withdraw projections, and it's really about discerning what's coming from soul and then what is a projection. I think it's important to remember that projection's really deep and in the body. It took me 15 years to withdraw that projection. And when I was really releasing it, it felt like kicking heroin, where I was like, everything in me just wanted to be with this person. From where I stand now, I can see that we weren't really seeing each other's souls, although we had a beautiful soul contract of how we were holding each other's hands at that time as part of a bigger plan, but it wasn't like a twin flame relationship. And I think a lot of times that's common. People feel those deep feelings, never felt that deep before. They think it's a twin flame relationship, but it kind of doesn't matter if they think it is or isn't, if it's serving the purpose, right? Of like just becoming more love and showing up to the soul contracts of that relationship. So sometimes I think it's almost tit for tat in terms of we don't really need to know if it's twin or soulmate, or it almost doesn't matter as long as we're doing our work, which is to just become the biggest sainted self version of love that you can be in this lifetime. And here's the image. I don't know if you can see. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This is a piece from my friend Mijanu, who's known as Mystic Mama. We have 2 lions on our wall. That's one of them, because Leo's so big around this household.
A little too big.
Yeah, and Leo in relationship to the feminine. So.
Yeah, thank you, Ibtisam, for sharing. And it's just been so amazing seeing you on your journey over these last 3 days.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say is, this feels like new beginnings to me. You know, I've shaved my head a few times. It's always been at the part where I'm like, something feels off and like I just need a shed, you know? And I think you have hit this reset button. I think it's interesting you're counseling couples and then you stopped. And to me that it feels like you're like, oh wait, I need to take a beat. I need to become internal again. I need to like really get all my inner houses in order before I'm coming out again. And like I said before, a lot of us have setups where we're like babies learning this thing. And we have that happens to us multiple times in a lifetime. Where we're like, okay, it's time to like relearn this thing from the beginning. And that's what this shaved head feels like to me. It feels like you're like, okay, I really want to like know this. I really want to learn it on a really true level. And so I'm going to start over. I'm going to like take a break. I'm going to start over. I'm going to like learn it step by step. And after you do consciously, and then after you do this, you will be able to teach it to others because you're doing this reset button. So I do think it's really important because you're going to consciously understand every single step and help people who have never heard of the feminine before or have never heard of these things before. And you're going to be like, okay, we'll start at step 1, you know, opposed to starting at step 50.
You're beautiful. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Could you, sorry.
Oh, hold on 1 second. I can bring you back. I had already pushed the button. I didn't mean to do that to you. Let me find you here. Okay, I'm going to bring her back. Just so everybody's aware, we may have our next presenters joining us soon. So if that happens, just know it's part of the transition. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you.
No, I'm sorry. I just thought last minute. Elisa, you said that there were some books you were going to recommend on projection.
Yeah, I like Robert Johnson's We, Understanding the Psychology of Romantic Love. He's a Jungian psychotherapist, so it's called We. You can get it on Amazon or...
Could you just repeat that again? I've not got it down.
We by Robert Johnson.
I just typed it in the chat too. I don't have a live link there, but I typed it.
Another one called Inner Gold, which is really specific about projection. And then on my website, you go to freebies at the bottom and I have a projection exercise. So you can do that. My take when I look quickly at the psychic relationship that you're talking about, it feels like a medicine around a deep kindness and reflection and a connection of warmth and mirroring. But I don't think it's your twin because you're still in very active, energetic relationship with your twin and it feels like a different energy, and it feels like the energy of your twin. So I don't know if the twin's incarnated on the planet or not. Some people say it's like 85% of the time it's not. I have no idea, but it feels to me like your twin is showing up as the support energetically, like the spirit guide for the big stuff you're bringing through today, now, all the time. So but that longing Adam was talking about before, and my longing, that is, I think, really real, and I think valid. I really like to read Rumi and Shams's relationship, right? Because that's the only thing that even made sense to me. Our relationship was, I was like, and also
right now that longing in you is showing up as your desire to self-discover yourself.
Yeah.
And that's your longing is showing up as you shaving your head, as you being like, wait, I really want to figure this out. So the longing before I met Elisa and all that, it shows up as spiritual journey, as that drive to keep moving forward, to keep self-discovering. And I think when you think about this other person, they feel like they're teaching love and kindness and warmth, and almost in that like really trustable family member way, you know? But it feels like you yourself can feel the difference between that spiritual drive is a little bit separate from that other person in your life. They're support for you, but they're not this exact same energy the spiritual you have in yourself right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hello, other presenters.
Hi. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome.
Wow, how amazing. That's great.
We're having a very lively conversation here, so we're still going.
You are. Fabulous.
Yeah.
I was hypnotized from the second I came online. I was like, woo, whoa.
Jumped into something deep here.
Yes, very much so.
We've just come out of a session of yin yoga, so we're a bit more like, whoa.
Oh. Very good. Very good.
Maybe that's what we'll do next. That sounds awesome.
Good idea.
Very good idea. Nice to meet you guys.
Me too.
So Elisa
Cheers.
and Adam, we do need to end now. There's two more people I know that wanted to talk to you, and we'll have to, maybe they can connect with you on your website. I did post the links to your website and the links to your retreat in the chat for anybody who's interested. I'm sorry we didn't get to those last two people.
That's okay. Yeah, if anybody's on this call and has questions and wants to email us, we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Great, wonderful.
Thank you so much for hosting, and lots of love to everyone listening, and thanks for showing up, and what beautiful souls we got to connect with today. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you both, Elisa and Adam, so much for it. That was just really beautiful, touched my heart and soul, I know, and I know everybody in attendance felt the same way. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
Enjoy.
much.
Take care.
You too. Thanks. Bye. All right, welcome, Yakov and Susanna. I'm so excited to talk to both of you. So let's see. We're 2 minutes from the starting time, and I need to just take a quick break, and I'll be right back. But we can all just hang out here on the line, and I will be right back with you.
Are we visible, Jocelyn, to people?
Yes, we are live. It's kind of a continuous all-day webinar.
That's good to know.
Yeah.